You know, it's almost a cliche in filmmaking at this point. That moment right before the disaster hits.
Mm-hmm. The calm before the
Yeah,
storm.
exactly. The birds stop singing. The wind just
Yeah.
dies down. The crowd goes quiet. It's that visceral feeling that tells your brain something is wrong.
Right.
But today, we're not looking at a movie script. We're looking at maybe the heaviest, most significant silence in all of ancient literature. We are diving back into the book of Revelation, specifically chapter 8.
And it's such a shift.
It's a huge shift. If you remember where we left off, the text has been so loud.
Oh, constant. Thunder, lightning, thousands of voices crying, holy, holy, holy. It's just a wall of sound.
Total sensory overload.
Yeah.
And then in verse 1, the final seal, the seventh seal is broken. And what happens?
Nothing.
Just silence.
Absolute silence for about half an hour.
Which, in the context of this book, is just terrifying.
It really is.
So welcome back to the deep dive. That is our mission today. We are unpacking that seventh seal and the first 4 of the 7 trumpets that it unleashes. And we've got a whole stack of commentaries and source texts here that break this down verse by verse.
Yeah, and they look at both the literal imagery, the fire, the hail, the falling stars, and what the sources call the expanded plane sense.
Yep.
Which is basically what these symbols actually mean. What they mean for the planet, for the economy, for humanity.
And it is a heavy list. I mean, looking at the progression, we move from this dead silence into what feels like a systematic, step-by-step dismantling of the Earth's entire life support system.
It is, exactly.
So let's start there. Verse 1. When he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. The sources make a big deal about this time frame. Why about half an hour?
It's so specific, isn't it?
Yeah, why not just there was silence?
Well, the consensus in the source material is that this silence represents a profound awe before judgment. You have to remember the context. Heaven, in Revelation, is this engine of perpetual praise.
Yeah.
It never stops.
The singing is constant.
It's constant. The creatures, the elders, they're always worshiping. For that to just stop, for the music to cut out, it implies that what is about to happen is so grave, so heavy, that even the angels can't sing through it.
It's like heaven holding its breath.
That's a great way to put it. And the half-hour part suggests it's a limited, specific pause. It's not forever. It's just long enough to create this unbearable suspense.
To let the gravity of the situation sink in.
Right, before the action starts.
And that action kicks off in verse 2 with a new group of characters, the 7 angels who stand before God. The text seems to single them out.
Yeah, these aren't just, random messengers from the crowd. The phrase "who stand before God" is technical. The sources suggest these are likely archangels, or what some call presence angels. They have a specific station. They are the inner circle, and they are each handed a trumpet.
Okay, and this is where we need to clarify some imagery. Because when we hear trumpets, we might think of, I don't know, a jazz band.
Right, or maybe Gabriel on a greeting card.
Yeah, but that is not the vibe here at all.
Not even close. You have to get out of the concert hall and get onto the battlefield. In the ancient world, and especially in the Old Testament, the trumpet, the shofar, was a signal device.
An alarm.
It was an alarm. It basically meant one of 3 things. The camp is moving, war is about to begin, or a king has arrived. They're functional.
So these aren't musical instruments so much as military signals.
Exactly. They are announcing that the next phase is engaging. The seals we looked at before, that was about revealing destiny, unrolling the scroll. The trumpets, this is active intervention. It's the difference between reading the declaration of war and actually sending in the troops.
But before the first trumpet blows, we get this scene in verses 3 and 4 that feels like a detour. You've got all this tension angels with trumpets ready to go, and the camera pans over to this other angel with a golden censer at an altar.
It does feel like a pause, but it's actually setting up the mechanics for everything that follows. It's a ritual scene drawn right out of temple worship. The angel is given much incense to offer with the prayers of all the saints.
I want to drill down on that phrase, the prayers of all the saints. Because we've heard from them before, haven't we? Back in chapter 6, the martyrs were asking a very specific question.
They were crying out, "How long, O Lord, until you judge the earth?"
They were praying for justice.
Yes, asking for the wrong things to be made right. So the source material connects this scene, this incense, directly back to those prayers.
So the incense rising is a symbol of the prayers finally reaching the throne.
It's a beautiful image, right?
Yeah.
God receiving the cries of his people. But then, look what happens in verse 5. This is where the tone just shifts violently.
This is the pivot. The angel takes that same censer, the one he just used to offer the prayers up to God, and he fills it with fire from the altar, and then he throws it down to the earth.
This is one of the most important mechanics in the whole book. The vessel of worship becomes the vessel of wrath. The sources argue that judgment isn't God just, flying off the handle. Judgment is God's direct answer to the prayers of his people for justice.
That's a heavy concept. We usually think of prayer as this gentle thing, thoughts and prayers, but here prayer is the actual fuel for the fire.
It is. Think of it like an input-output system. The input, prayers for justice. The output, fire on the earth.
And the reaction is immediate. Noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. The silence is shattered.
The transaction is complete, the prayers have been heard, and the response is kinetic.
And that triggers the main event. Verse 6. So the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound.
The pause is over.
Let's walk through these first 4, because the sources describe them as a tetrad, a group of 4 that target the physical world.
Right. Land, sea, fresh water in the heavens. It's like a dismantling of creation itself.
So, trumpet 1. Verse 7. Hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. This sounds a lot like the plagues of Egypt.
It absolutely echoes the plague of hail in Exodus.
Yeah.
But the scale here is global, and the text gives us a damage report. 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up.
I got stuck on that phrase, all green grass. I mean, if we're taking the expanded plain sense, that is not just about losing your lawn.
No, not at all. Think about the food chain. All green grass implies grains, barley, wheat, everything livestock eat.
Right.
If you lose the green grass, you lose the entire basis of agriculture. You are looking at immediate catastrophic famine conditions.
And 1/3 of the trees. That's lumber, fruit, oxygen. I mean, it's an ecological collapse.
It is. But notice the fraction, 1/3.
It comes up over and over in this chapter.
And it's the key to understanding the purpose of these judgments. If God wanted to just wipe everything out, the fraction would be all. But 1/3 means it's limited. It's a massive, yes, it's catastrophic, but it's restrained. The source argues this is because the purpose is still a warning. It's a shock to the system designed to wake people up, not just to delete them. It leaves 2/3 remaining, which implies there's still something left to save.
So the land is scorched. Then the second angel sounds his trumpet in verse 8. The target shifts to the sea. Something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea.
Notice the language there. Something like, the writer John is struggling to describe what he's seeing. He doesn't have the vocabulary.
So the sources have a few theories on this. A volcano, maybe. A meteor.
A large asteroid or meteor impact really fits the description best. A burning mass that hits the ocean, and the impact is threefold. First, the water turns to blood. So massive chemical contamination or a red tide event. Second, 1/3 of all marine life dies.
That's a global protein collapse. A massive fish kill.
Huge. But it's the third impact that we often skip over, and the sources flag this as critical. 1/3 of the ships were destroyed.
Yeah, that detail feels so specific. Why mention the ships? If you're talking about nature, why bring commerce into it?
Because it signals this isn't just an environmental disaster, it's an economic one.
Okay.
The ancient world was globalized in its own way. Rome ran on grain from Egypt. If you destroy 1/3 of the shipping fleet, you completely break the supply chain.
We saw what happens when shipping gets even slightly disrupted a few years ago. This is 1 out of every 3 ships just gone.
Right. So connect the dots. First trumpet, the green grass is burned so you can't grow food.
Right.
Now the ships are destroyed so you can't move food. The source calls it a supply chain catastrophe. It's a recipe for total societal panic.
It's dismantling all the safety nets. You can't grow it and you can't buy it. Okay, so land and sea are hit. The third trumpet, verses 10 and 11, this one targets fresh water.
This is where it gets really personal. The text says a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on the rivers and springs.
And this star has a name, wormwood.
Epsinthos in the Greek.
Sounds like something you'd order at a fancy cocktail bar.
It does, but in this context, it is not pleasant. It literally means bitter. In the Old Testament, wormwood is always a symbol of bitterness, poison, and deep sorrow.
So when this object hits, it doesn't dry up the water, it poisons it.
It poisons it. It changes the chemical composition. The text says, many men died from the water because it was made bitter.
And think about the progression here. You can maybe survive without trade. You can survive without some trees. You cannot survive without fresh water. This judgment comes right into your home, into your cup.
Precisely. The noose is tightening. It's moving from out there in the ocean to right here in the rivers. It's inescapable. And then, to cap it all off, The fourth trumpet sounds in verse 12. And now we look up.
A third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them were darkened.
The sources call this cosmic dimming.
Is this like an eclipse?
It seems more permanent than that. An eclipse is just a passing shadow. This describes a structural change. Either the output of the stars themselves is reduced, or the atmosphere becomes so opaque. The result is a third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night.
Wow. And if you lose a third of the sun's output, what does that do to the planet?
You freeze.
Yeah.
This would almost certainly trigger a rapid global cooling event. And think about agriculture again. We already lost the grass to fire. Now, any crops that are left are trying to grow with 33% less light and heat. It's the compounding disaster.
It's so systematic. It's not just random chaos. It's strike the food source, strike the distribution, strike the water, strike the energy source.
It's a decreation. I mean, if you look at Genesis 1, God builds the world in these logical steps. Light, water, land, plants, sun, and moon. Revelation 8 is just taking that apart, piece by piece. He's literally turning the lights off.
That is a chilling way to put it. And yet, after all of that, the starvation, the poison water, the darkness, the chapter ends with a warning that basically says, you haven't seen anything yet.
Verse 13, this is the pivot for the rest of the book.
And I looked, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth.
Quick textual note there, you said angel, and some translations do say that, but the older, more reliable manuscripts actually say eagle.
An eagle?
Yes, a solitary bird of prey, flying through this newly dimmed sky, screaming. It adds this level of predatory dread to the whole scene.
That is a haunting image. And it screams, woe 3 times. Why 3?
Because there are 3 trumpets left, the 5th, 6th, and 7th. The eagle is explicitly linking each woe to one of the remaining trumpet blasts. The implication is that the first 4, as unbelievably bad as they were
just the setup.
They were just the physical setup. The woes are going to be something else entirely. The sources are pretty clear that the very nature of the judgment changes here.
How so?
The first 4 were attacks on the environment, the stuff we rely on.
Yeah.
The next 3 are attacks on humanity itself. They become more direct, more demonic, and far more tormenting.
There's a specific phrase the eagle uses that the sources highlighted. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Is that just a fancy way of saying everybody?
You'd think so, but in Revelation, it's actually a technical term, the earth dwellers. It refers specifically to people who have tied their entire identity to this world. They are the hardened unbelievers who refuse to look up.
So the people who, despite the meteor and the blood-red water and the sky going dark, are still just digging in their heels.
Exactly. They are of the earth. And this warning is specifically for them. It's as if it's saying, if you loved the world this much, watch what happens when the world itself turns on you.
What a chilling place to stop. We started this deep dive with that absolute silence in heaven, that sense of awe, and we end it with a screaming eagle in a world that is burned, dark, and thirsty.
It's a heavy progression. We've just watched the complete dismantling of civilization's pillars: agriculture, commerce, basic survival, and climate.
And through it all, that recurring fraction, 1/3.
The restraint and the wrath. God is breaking the systems, but not destroying humanity. Not yet. He's stripping away all the comforts to try and force a choice.
I want to circle back to one thing before we wrap up. That image of the censer, the bowl.
It's the key to the whole chapter, really.
I just can't get past the sheer efficiency of it. The same bowl that carries the prayers up is the one that brings the fire down.
It suggests a relationship between prayer and history that we often ignore. We tend to think of prayer as a way to cope with the world, maybe ask for some small favors. This book says prayer is the engine that actually drives the end of the world.
It completely reframes what it means to pray, thy kingdom come.
Right. We say that all the time. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Well, Revelation 8 is showing us what that can look like physically. For the kingdom of God to fully arrive, the kingdom of this world has to be dismantled. The corruption, the compromised systems, they have to be burned away.
So when the fire falls from that censer, it's not an accident?
It's an answer.
That is a lot to chew on. We are going to pause the deep dive right there. We're standing on the edge of the 3 woes, and from what I've read, the 5th trumpet makes a burning mountain look like a warm-up act.
It really does.
We will get there next time. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next deep dive.